In today's video, we're going to be talking about one of the most sought after skills that still exists for procurement teams, and that's negotiating procurement contracts. This is one skill area that you should absolutely spend time developing. It's one of those areas that will very likely be subsumed at some point by artificial intelligence. So some really cool contract negotiation, AI negotiation agents out there, and I think they're doing some really cool, wonderful things. The one that always comes to mind is Paxton AI. But I think for the very near foreseeable future, there's always going to be a place for human interactions when it comes to negotiation. So in this video, we're going to cover 5 key skills and areas that you should absolutely focus on to get the most out of your contract negotiations. Let's make a start. So tip number 1 is to fully prepare before you actually start the negotiation. Sounds so obvious. And every time I find myself saying this, I'm always reminded of some of the horror negotiations that I've had to be part of, where very experienced leaders have gone into it with absolutely no prep. I've even had scenarios where I was a consultant and we were negotiating with numerous high-profile vendors that if we couldn't get the stuff at a certain price and still have it delivered on time, we were absolutely going to screw up our being contract for our customer. So we were on one end having to negotiate savings because the work that had been done pre-contract with our customer wasn't done to the highest degree possible and scoped everything out correctly. And then the customer's been pressure on us to cut costs, to save a bit of money where possible, but also deliver at a higher quality level and sooner. These two things squished everything within the company that I was consulting, and they're trying to help them with this kind of stuff. But the most senior commercial person there decided actually he was going to take these specific negotiations with the vendors, these 4 critical suppliers, despite not being part of the program. A bit of an ego trip, let's say. And he just walked in to the negotiation with no preparation whatsoever. And did we get any of the savings? Yeah, we did. But you know what they came at the expense of? The scope, the requirements. They were absolutely just slashed. So they weren't real savings, right? A saving is where you go in and you have that set of requirements. You still get everything you need, but you save a bit of money. You don't lessen the quality. You don't lessen the deliverables to get a saving. That's just a reduction in scope. And I was having to be very careful here, right? Because these people are paying me. It's not my company. And I can only tell them so much. There's only so much you can do when you're a consultant. If your client doesn't want to listen to you, that's fine. And I obviously very soon after made a decision to step away from that consultancy role. But this lesson has always kind of stuck with me, that going into a negotiation and not being clear on what your organization truly needs, what they value, what moves the needle, is a surefire way to screw up. Honestly, that is the last thing anyone needs. And if you, in your role, can start to articulate the importance of this, even if people don't listen to you, they will, once they go into that negotiation and screw up, they will come back to you and say, actually, we weren't prepared for that. We didn't get what we needed, and we need a better plan moving forward. You're the person that needs to help us. And being that person in an organization or for your clients is an incredible way to earn more money, to get a more senior position. And ultimately, I imagine that if you're watching this video, you're trying to learn about procurement, you're trying to figure out how you can further yourself in your role. I think being the most prepared for your contract negotiations is a good way to do that. Tip number 2 is to focus on the overall value, not just the contract price. And I touched on this in point 1. Let's use that example. We lessened the scope to get the price down, but that didn't retain the overall value that was needed. The overall value was we had a set of requirements that needed to be met, because if they weren't, we can deliver to the customer properly. And they needed to be delivered by a set point in time, because if we missed that day, we would miss our knock-on deliverable dates with our customer. And these are really important, right? because price only tells you so much. Price isn't the only variable we care about. So if you're sacrificing elements such as the quality of the deliverables, the delivery date, the prototype date, whatever it is that you're sacrificing, you really need to have that alignment, to have that backing from your organization that that is the right thing to do. Because if you're sacrificing these things just to get a lower price, it's not a lower price. You're going to have to pay for this at some point. And this is where this concept of scope creep comes in, where you don't quite get what you contracted for at the outset, and then you need to add stuff back in. A lot of suppliers will also be aware of this, especially in certain industries. They know that that procurement team sucks at scope and requirements within their business, and that they get one bit of work and they know they're going to get loads of follow-on work because they will answer in such a way that will narrow that scope as much as possible. And then the creep begins. Oh, we need this, actually we need that. Okay, we can do that for you, procurement team, but it's going to cost you. So please be aware of this. Tip number 3 is to prioritize your contract terms that you absolutely need to nail down. So we've kind of discussed the deliverables, the quality element, the price part of a negotiation, but now we actually want to focus in on that contract document. What is it we actually care about? And we did a bit of a deep dive into pre-signature and post-signature contract management. If you've not watched that video yet, please make sure you go and watch that at some point, because that video will illustrate why this is so vital. If we're not getting the right terms agreed at this point, we're going to have a load of issues when we get into that post-signature contract management phase. We're going to really struggle to use the contract as a vehicle to manage that supplier. And let's be honest, a contract's a really important document. It confirms what should be done by two different parties, and it's a set of rules. But you need the means to get that contract and enforce those rules on your supplier and also yourself, right? Because there's certain things you need to do. So please be aware that you absolutely need to nail down the contract negotiation at this point and be cognizant, right? Because this may impact the price, the quality, and everything else that we've done. And that's why I want to raise it here. You can't just narrowly and in isolation deal with the contract part. Tip number 4 is really all about the psychology of the language in which we are using with our suppliers. If we start using language that is one-sided, you start making demands of your supplier, I'm telling you now, you're just going to piss them off. They're not going to want to work with you, engage with you. But see, if you can make them feel part of that decision, part of that process, that this is a truly collaborative exercise that you're going through, because there's going to be some sort of longer term partnership, longer term piece of work. And of course, you can only do this when there actually is. There's no point promising the world that we're going to partner up, we're going to achieve this, that, and everything if that's not realistic. So having the integrity around this and not just using it as a means to influence the price, the deal, please just be honest with yourself and with your suppliers. But using collaborative language is an absolute powerhouse of a way to make your suppliers feel like you're not taking the mickey. Do you know that phrase? It might just be a very British English saying. But we need to use collaborative language. Instead of I want this, I want that, it's we could do this, we could achieve this, we could do something here and reduce something over here. And it's really thinking about how you position everything you say as a more collective point of conversation. Try it out. You may just be surprised by how incredibly powerful this little tool is. And tip number 5 might sound really obvious, but it's not to rush this process. I've seen the hot-headed person who didn't do any prep rush into a negotiation, try to agree something there and then. You spend 4 hours talking, you go around in circles, suppliers go off back to their office, you come back a week later, nothing's changed, right? So you need to do all of these steps, which do take time. Don't rush the other steps that I've already mentioned just because you think you can go into a room, you can bully your supplier, you can force your supplier to do stuff. It's really not going to work like that. So trust in the process of being prepared, of doing your due diligence, of trying to be collaborative with your supplier, and everything is going to work. so much better for you in that contract negotiation. So to recap here, we've gone through 5 different tips that I think will massively help you. The most important things are: be prepared for every negotiation. Don't sacrifice the quality, the essence of what you're trying to do for a better price. Consider the contract terminology and clauses at this point, because once they're locked in, it's almost impossible to change them. Be collaborative where possible, and don't rush the process. Have trust in the process. Before you go today, we've got a load of videos on contract management, on procurement, on supply chain. You should definitely check out this video here. It's about the pre and post signature phases of contract management. It's really going to help you. If you deploy all of these things alongside this video, you're going to be laughing. Your procurement process can be so much better. You can thank me later or right now by hitting subscribe and watching that video. See you soon.